I believe that we should take risks, almost all the risks in our life, regardless how scared we may be. Because let's start with the dictum or with a quote, which is one of my favorites that reminds me every day that I need to take risks. And it says, no, no, let me recall it. Good is an enemy of the best. And what it means is sometimes things which feel comfortable for you or to you are the enemy of the things which you have potential to achieve. Sometimes those comfortable things suppress you or stop you from reaching your fullest potential and your uh, most valuable aspirations. And honestly, talking back about talk coming back to the topic of taking risks, I almost all my life I was a person or a kid who didn't take much risks. I always tried to I always tried not to stand out of the crowd. I always tried to be I can't say that I was very introverted, but I always tried to please other people. I tried to fit into society. And because of that, just because of the fact I started suppressing my own self, I started just putting it deeper and deeper into myself. I began losing myself, and I just kept pleasing people. I kept doing anything just to make not new acquaintances, but to be better, to be a better friend or something like that. But you need to also you need to realize that it is impossible to please all people, and it is a reason why not it is not a reasonable option to be a people pleaser. I'm talking from my experience because it was awful. It really was awful. I missed so much opportunities in my life, so much chances only because I was afraid to take risks, afraid to speak out, afraid to stand out of the crowd and say that I don't like something. I was always just I was always just silent and quiet, and what it brought me, even though I pleased some people, even though maybe some people thought of me uh, as a calm, disciplined, I don't know, well, I'm sure that a lot of people thought about me as a rather positive guy, but it really destroyed me. It really just deprived me from a lot of from my real potential back then. And even though back then I felt pretty okay, I felt pretty comfortable with pleasing people and not with not standing out of the crowd and talking what I want and just taking risks to change something, because I was afraid that if I change something, I will lose something that I have today. And I didn't understand that in order to achieve something great, it's just essential to sacrifice something which you have now. But well, as I said, I felt pretty comfortable back then. But looking back on this time, on that time, I understand that I've, as I said, lost so much different things, so much chances and so much opportunities that now I don't even consider an option to make an excuse to not to just take a certain risks or take a certain risk, or not to make what I want to do. Because, well, there is a kind of a mental experiment which I read about in a book, and what you need to do is imagine that you are in your elderlies, in 60s or 70s, in a nursing house, thinking about your just all your life. And there were two just examples. The first one was with for example, a grandpa who is who just lived his life pretty decently, who had a pretty decent life, who took a lot of risks, who made a lot of who made a lot of things which were scary for him or to him back then. But regardless of this just fear, he kept moving forward and doing something which really brought a lot of positive emotions and stories into his life. His life was filled with uh, vivid memories, and he has a lot to tell about his life. He's just content. He's satisfied with his life and with despite of the fact that he made some mistakes, which is just essential. As humans, we cannot live without making mistakes. And I also saw a video today, or a few days later, that says we cannot make mistakes because every action we make becomes who we are. And well, back to the topic. When he said that, well, for him, he just, even though he made a few mistakes, he ended up a happy person. But the second example is a grandpa who did not do anything in his life, who didn't take any risks, who always was a quiet person, who, for example, was a people pleaser or something like that, who was always just trying to be quiet and not, who was just afraid to make something different from make something that he didn't do before, something unprecedented. And because of that, he just thinks about his life, and he now understands that, well, I lived for 60 or 70 fucking years. I wasted the most precious asset of my life, which is time, and I can't get it back. I lost this asset. I lost all my 70 years of my life surviving, not living. I was just not even surviving, but existing. And he just thinks about all the risks he could have taken. He thoughts about all the opportunities he could have get if he took those risks, and he now understands it. Even though those risks were scary back then, there were both positive or negative outcome, just possible negative or positive outcome. But he understood that most of those situations would have turned out positively, would have turned out in a positive manner, in a positive way, or they could have just become his experience, which would have prevented him from doing a lot of mistakes like that in the future. And he just, for me, it's really hard to even imagine the levels of dismay which this person may experience. There is no just more intimidating feeling for me. There is no more intimidating things even in life than the fact that there is a tiniest possibility for me to feel this dismay and anguish. I am really afraid of the fact that there is the tiniest possibility that I can be in my elderly thinking about how I could have done more. And because of that, I've just promised myself that I would do absolutely anything to prevent this from happening. Because I just can't really, it's so hard for me even to imagine that it's shocking even for me. I can't come up with anything worse with this feeling of dissatisfaction and frustration when you understand that you lived 70 years of your life, when you had so much opportunities but you missed them just because of the fear. And I can't even imagine the levels of regret which you may face. And also, another quote, the pain of regret is always worse than the pain of failure or the pain of fear or anything. Because pain and fear is temporary, but regret is something that you cannot face, you cannot change, because regret is a feeling that is aroused by something which was in the past, which is aroused by something which was in the past, and you really just think, how could you, have you done better or something like that. And even though there are a lot of people who try not to regret about anything they did, and I'm also such a person, but in my opinion, it's impossible not to regret about wasting your life. There's nothing just worse in our, for example, for me, there's nothing worse in human life than understanding that you lost your potential, that you've lived your life existing, not living. And because of that, I really can't stand the thought, or I can't bear the thought that as I said, that there is a tiniest possibility of becoming mediocre. So I'm running out of things to say, so I think that I will end this video. If anyone watched it till the end, I really appreciate it. I hope that I've motivated at least one person